most people can't write. Most people can't write their own content. Most business owners can't write their own content.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's scary, right? When you ask like, oh yeah, so what's your mission? How would you break it down? And you just get a blank stare. You're like, oh god.
They're like, well.
Welcome to the Infinite Creative Podcast. Well, this is now a podcast. It is a little bit different because we're in a different setup. Sean, explain this place.
So we're here. We're actually at Thrive, which is here in St. Petersburg. It's a co-working space here in town. And we're here with an awesome web designer and SEO expert. We have Tom Nguyen right here of Mr. Technique.
Hey, glad to be here.
Yeah, sweet. So let's actually pull up your website. So so this is your website.
All right.
What are your specialties? Because you're doing the thing. What is your thing?
Top two specialties are website design and SEO. And when I say website design, I usually mean website development because that all gets lumped in there.
Yeah.
Web design, web development, graphic design sometimes as well.
So is it mostly just web design work kind of here in town, or are you kind of doing national clients, or?
Actually, so originally I'm from Atlanta, so I got most of my business from Atlanta. Recently, I just moved. Not recently, probably 3 years ago. 2020, October 2020 is when I moved to St. Pete.
Oh, nice.
For me and my wife did. And prior to that, Mr. Technique was at the top of Google for all Atlanta web design keywords. If you typed in web design Atlanta web designer, Mr. Technique was anywhere in the top 3 spots, and it's been that way since 2015, or it was that way until I moved. And then when I moved here in 2020, I had to start all over because I had to change my address, change the phone number. There were some I guess hiccups with that I got over, but we can talk about that later on.
Oh,
yeah. So so we've kind of known each other a little bit. We've met a little bit a few times off camera, and you definitely told me your story. But I definitely want to get into it because so on this podcast, a lot of our audience out there are a lot of young creatives. A lot of people are just now starting to be a web designer, just now starting to get down this kind of road. So I guess take me back. When did you think of web design SEO? When did that all start to kind of come together? I guess feel free to go back to the beginning.
Well, so I'm gonna actually go before website design. So I had actually learned how to code when I was I learned how to code and type when I was 12 years old. My dad had sent me up to the Washington D.C. area to live with my uncle for about a year. And when I was up there, my uncle told me, he said, "Hey, you're gonna learn how to program." I was like, okay, as a 12-year-old kid, I'm like, okay, how am I going to do that? And he said, here's this book on BASIC. And he's like, you can read that cover to cover, and you'll learn it. It's like, and by the way, it's like I've got a Reader's Digest quiz that I want you to make a program of, multiple choice vocabulary quiz. I want you to program that, and it needs to be done in like 3 months. I was like, oh, all right.
Wow! Right out of the gate, your first brief, first project, boom.
Yeah. I didn't even know how to type at the time, and I was like, how am I going? I was like, I can't even type. How am I going to learn? How am I going to type? It's like, well, I've got this little program right here. You can get started right there. Well, that'll teach you how to type.
So now I have a question though, because how long ago was that? Because back in the day when I was a kiddo, you had to learn, there were classes how to type and whatever, and you were coding and doing that at that time.
This was actually before the internet. It was 1988, 1989.
That's when I was born.
Long time, right? I'm older than I look, man. But so I was doing that, and so I decided to read. I read the book cover to cover, and I learned how to code BASIC, and I actually did. I learned how, before I learned how to code, I learned how to type. So I got to learn. I learned how to type, and I got as fast as 60 words per minute or something like that when I was up there, and so I was really comfortable with typing, and then I eventually coded that vocabulary quiz. So that was my first taste of programming. Now, when I moved back to Atlanta, a year later, I didn't touch a computer for several more years, actually all throughout high school, and then I started to, and then when I went to Georgia State, that's that's where I went to college. I started out as a computer science major, and I started programming again, but I didn't stick with it, and I ended up changing my degree to economics, minor math. Didn't get a job with my degree, and I worked some other jobs, and one of those other jobs was working as a corrections officer or a detention officer in a jail, in the county jail.
Wow.
So, what a transition from tech to
right. I've been prison, jail. It's like so you're probably wondering, like, how did you learn how to code there? Well, I always had, like, not always. I wanted to learn how to code, but I didn't know how. And to make a long story short, I bought this book on HTML, and there was a position in the jail where you had to work the infirmary, and the infirmary was just a place where all the inmates were in, like, solitary confinement or they were sick. It was just a quiet, boring position. Nobody wanted to have that position, but I wanted to learn how to code, so I volunteered. I was like, I'll take that spot every time they asked for it, I took it. And the reason why is because they had a computer there, and the computer had Windows, and it didn't have the internet, but it had Internet Explorer, and it had Notepad. And Notepad is capable of saving HTML files, and HTML files is what's needed to render a web page. So although I couldn't, like, upload images, I could type in code and then test it out on Internet Explorer. Wow. So that's what I did. I read the whole book of HTML cover to cover, as well as like I
can't imagine
a beginner / intermediate JavaScript book, and so I learned actually HTML and JavaScript in jail.
In jail. He learned web coding in jail, ladies and gentlemen.
But I want to go back to the thing, like, when who was it again? Your uncle?
My uncle.
Yeah, your uncle gave you the book.
He gave me a book, yeah.
He was so forward thinking. He was not thinking about, like, this will be big right now. This will be very, very far back in the future, because he knew this will be a big thing, coding.
Yeah, at the time I was thinking, man, I don't want to learn this, but now that as an adult, I'm thanking him, because he taught me some skills that I'm using today.
I love that.
Yeah, that's what's so interesting about code, right? Is that, like, those kind of fundamental things tend to come back, I talk to a lot of web developers where they kind of learn HTML, and they kind of ask me, like, do I really need to learn this these days? And I'm like, you may not, but it's like calculator, right? If you don't know how to do basic addition and subtraction, you just go straight to the calculator. You don't really know. So it's funny, right? Like, some of that stuff way back in those days, you probably still apply to now, I'm sure.
I think it helps you with problem solving. With code. If you've done code before, like, you sometimes you'll get stuck and you're wondering why the page isn't rendering correctly, and at least I've been there several times.
Yeah, I was there this morning.
Yeah, you're like, and it might be something as small as, like, you didn't close an anchor tag, or you didn't close a tag, HTML tag, and that may be the sole reason why your page isn't rendering correctly, isn't appearing correctly.
So I'm very interested. So while you have this other job, I guess as you were doing it, because you were self-taught, right? So I guess you just kind of followed the order of the book then, right?
I did. I read the book cover to cover, and then at the same, I bought the book on Photoshop, and I couldn't do Photoshop in jail, but I did read it while I was in jail, because I didn't have much else to do. And I was in one of those boring spots, which I wanted, and so I read that book, and I learned more about graphic design. So I learned how to do graphic design, learned how to do HTML, how to write JavaScript, and then I remember I did read a whole book on Flash. Flash is no longer relevant. Long time.
R.I.P.
I'm just like,
I'm showing my age. So,
hey, I use Flash too. But
nowadays, though, it's completely different with learning. There's, like, YouTube and everything. How do you learn nowadays? You still learn what are the things where you're getting into, and how do you do it?
So Google is my friend, and I learned how to query or search for terms, search for problems that I'm having.
Yeah.
And, like, let's say if I'm getting, like, let's say if I'm doing some server side coding, which I don't do that much of, and I get this type of error, I'll copy and paste the error, put in Google, and lots of times most of the times there'll be a solution for it.
Okay, awesome. I mean, so and then so even going back, I keep bringing you back to prison. Sorry, but
it's pretty interesting how I learned how to code there.
But so I'm very interested. So one of the things that I know that I went through, and I kind of know some other developers that are trying to learn right now, where they do the lessons, right? They do the kind of book knowledge, but the hardest thing is kind of transitioning that to like a real project. Can you talk about that? Like, what was some of the real projects that started to happen for you?
Okay, so real project. So. Prior to me learning how to code in HTML, I was using. We were talking about this before the podcast. I was using Dreamweaver, and I was using Dreamweaver, but I wasn't using the HTML code view. I was using the WYSIWYG view at the time, and so I actually designed the whole website with Dreamweaver. I had gotten my first client, my first website client, a year or so before I got the job in the jail, but I didn't have enough work to where I could do it full time.
Right.
And while I was in jail, I was hoping like.
It sounds like while I was in jail.
Yeah, I know I keep saying while.
I love it. I love it.
Sounds like I'm a criminal, but
I have like the nicest convict we should ever have.
So I was just imagining me doing it like on a full time basis or having enough clients, and I got the first few clients. Like actually, I got all my clients in the beginning all through word of mouth.
Oh, that's good.
That's really good.
So I eventually like I had gotten enough business to do it full time, and I did that. I did just website design from like 2005 to 2010. That was just website design, and then although I had enough work to keep myself busy, like I wasn't generating enough revenue at the time, so I almost quit like in the middle of 2010 or at the end of 2010, and I had to go get a job as an admin assistant at a mortgage broker company, and so I actually that was an interesting twist in there too, because I cut back to doing website design part time, but at the job, the company was using. They were just starting to use Google Apps. You remember Google Apps? Today it's known as Google Workspace.
Yeah.
And so they were implementing that for the first time. So all it is just Gmail with your company email address. And I while I was working for that company, I actually learned how to set that up for them, and when I did that, I learned how to set it up for my own domain name, and I was so lucky. I was under a grandfather plan. There was Google had a free G Suite account or a Google Apps account at the time. If you had under like 30 email addresses, and I definitely had under that. So I enjoyed the free.
That's so cool.
I enjoyed the free Google Workspace account or Google Apps G Suite. I don't know what they call them these days. They changed the name, but I enjoyed their free account for all the way up until last year.
Wow!
What?
From 2010 to 2022.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And how much money you probably made out of that free account?
It was great. It was great. I love it. I mean, they don't charge that much now, but like it was amazing. I just had a grandfather plan.
Well, that's so cool. I mean, so you were really an early adopter of kind of the Google environment. I mean, I know for me, I'm only probably 4 or 5 years of really being comfortable within that world. But you're very early on. I mean, you were before anyone was really familiar with it, really.
I know Google Workspace more than I really care to know. I have some clients that's all I do is like Google Workspace stuff
for.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. So you were at like, sorry.
No worries.
Sorry.
We don't want to.
We'll get you in here a second. But like, so I'm interested though. So you're in both these jobs. So you're kind of at the prison and you're like, you know what? I'm going to learn. I'm going to use the best use of this time. And it's funny because I see the same thing happening when you're at this kind of mortgage brokers. You were kind of like, you know what? I could be using my time.
That seemed to like find a way to like improve my knowledge.
Yeah. Which is cool. You took advantage of it.
Yeah. And I even got more stories of like previous employer between the jail and the mortgage broker too. I worked for a recruiting firm for like 2 or 3 months, and my job was an internet sourcer. An internet sourcer is just someone that does research on candidates for recruiters. And so at the time, I learned how the guy who's training us was showing us how to do like specialized Google queries, like the site operator or the related operator. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the site operator. If you type in like site : MrTechnique.com, my site.
Yeah.
So you can find all the pages that Google indexes.
Yeah, I've never done that myself. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, the whole indexing thing with the websites. Like, I'm actually like a total beginner and have no idea about websites. There's like a whole magic to it because like people think websites are dead. What is your take on that? Because like I personally think they're very powerful and can do a lot of things. But there's like younger kids. Do I need a website? I actually work with a client who does not want to have a website. And I'm like,
okay.
And he's bigger. So I'm just like, it's weird. But what is your guys' take on that so far with the future of website?
Yeah.
I think they're going to continue to exist. I mean, do you go to a website every single day?
No.
Really?
Facebook maybe? Like
really? Just a Facebook app or Facebook?
Facebook app. Like right now, everything is more apps on the phone.
Really?
You know. So like websites are kind of weird. So I just want to see you guys' take on that because I'm from the outside. You know.
I see.
Yeah. So I'm just like, for me, like, I know they're worth it and they have a lot of benefits. Like you can generate revenue and you can do all sorts of things, you know. But how is the climate now versus back in the day when there were no apps? Because now everything is an app, everything, you know, traffic is only coming from Instagram, Facebook, you know, all those bigger sites who are just like their own internet in a way.
You know what's funny is that Instagram, even though Instagram is an app, it is still a website because there's Instagram.com. You can go to even TikTok.com. You still access the same videos on there.
Yeah.
My developer told me that, and I'm not sure if I'm 100% correct on this, but an app is like a website, just under like a different wrapper. I was like,
that makes sense. Yeah.
Just packaged differently, but yeah. But I don't think websites are going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about websites is that they can adapt, right? It's all what you put into it.
That's right.
It's like an engine is how I explain it to people. Is like, if we create a website for you and you never put anything into it, you never link to it, it's not connected to then it is useless. But if you connect it to all the bits and pieces, it can be super powerful, right? I mean, but it all just depends on what you're feeding that engine, right?
Well, you have to think about this, right? Like you're searching for... you probably search Google, right?
Yeah, Google we use like
Google is a website.
Yeah,
right?
it's true. I'm just like playing devil's advocate. I'm like, but
let's say like let's take it a little further. You search Google, you're probably searching for restaurants sometimes, and when you search for a restaurant, not all restaurants have apps.
Yeah.
So you're probably going to go to their website, or maybe their Google My Business profile. Maybe Google My Business profile is still Google's website, but. As far as going away, they're changing, and they're always changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is it's the property of the internet, right? And if you're only using social media, you're renting, right?
I like that.
You don't own. You're renting a house. You're renting an apartment. So it's like, so when you have your own website, this is your website. You have full ownership. You can do whatever you want on it.
Yeah, so. You can move it to whatever hosting provider that you want. Whereas if you're just posting on Facebook, that's Facebook's property. They can take all your personal stuff.
And the data too, right? Like like Facebook. You've probably seen it for sure. Even in Google, is that they hide a lot of that data. They don't give you all the data.
They do not. I think
Well, I don't want to go down the conspiracy theorist road, man. But,
we never do that on this podcast.
No, I should not. I'm gonna plead the fifth on that part.
Very smart.
Yeah. But on this note, like when I came in here setting all the stuff up, you know, you guys were like talking about like Canva, what people are using. And I'm just like, I could feel the heat and the passion, you know? And I'm just like, so what is with that now? With all those cute new apps that are popping up, and I am a designer now and actually have no idea.
You know, as many things as they come up with, like you still have to know what you're doing for like websites. Like, you know, with websites you have Wix, you have Squarespace, you have Weebly. You know, you have to have some kind of level of proficiency to design, develop a website. I mean, there is a market for people that can just do Wix websites, but for me, I'm such a traditionalist. And maybe I'm not sure if it's a good or bad thing, but I can do anything that a Wix website designer can do, and a hell of a lot more.
Yeah.
Same.
Go for it.
Before I sorry to interrupt you, but same to be said with like Canva versus like Photoshop or Illustrator. You know, Canva is nowhere near as powerful as Photoshop or any of the graphic design tools. And Sean, you're a graphic designer, but
oh yeah, I mean, I did the classical approach, right? Went to art school, read lots of books too. I have my Photoshops, like 3 and all that, and 4 and 5, and you know, and it's the same. It's really kind of the same answer as the website question, really, right? Like when you make your own website, you have full freedom. Like you can just go into the back code and you can do pretty much anything. Where like if I go into Wix, I'm like, is that in the menu? Oh, I have to get the pro version. Oh wait, that's in this other nested menu. Oh wait, you don't do that yet. I'm like on the support line. They're like, yeah, we don't do that now. And you're like, okay, well now I just have to tell the client no. And every time I get in those projects with clients, there's a lot of me calling them and saying like, yeah, you know how you wanted to bundle your products? Can't do that. You know how you wanted the header to stick? Can't do that either. And oh, the menu icon, you wanted to be custom? I can't do that.
Yeah.
And it's like, so you get to this place where like, you're not able to be creative, right? You're not able to really push the envelope at all.
You also don't own that website either. Like if you close your Wix account, you can't migrate that website.
100%.
Ooh, I did not know.
Yeah, and they kind of do. They'll let you export the HTML, but if you ever do,
but you can't edit.
It's a mess.
It's
all like nested. It's all like inline. It's god awful. And that's one thing too. There's a lot of conversation too of like on the back end of these websites, it's a mess. It's a code mess, and it hurts SEO. It hurts load times. So it's like it's the easy route, right?
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, load times are big.
Yeah. So for all of you out there, don't do Wix. No.
Friends don't let friends design with Wix. You know, right?
I like that.
Yeah. Exactly. You heard it here first.
Okay, like now I'm kind of curious though. What are the worst and the best tools that you can rate right now? I want to hear like 10 tools, like Wix, Canva, or whatever, and kind of rate them a little bit for what they're good or not. I know it's off the cuff, but I'm very curious what designers think about like the usabilities and function of tools.
Yeah, well, I'll let you go first, Tom. What's some cool tools, I guess? What are some tools you want to shout out?
Some cool tools. I mean, I use like software as a service tools. Like I use Bitbucket and GitHub. Those are repos to keep track of like versions of your site. So if like you updated your site you update your site and you don't like the changes, you can revert the changes to whatever period that you want to. Other tool, I mean, I love Photoshop. I love Illustrator. You know, as far for mobile apps, I've started to get into it. I haven't mastered it, but it's a pretty awesome tool. I use Procreate for the iPad.
Oh yeah, I do that too. My wife actually makes drawings, like kids books, and you can mirror everything, and it's like so amazing.
So I'm a member of like the St. Pete. I mean, I'm part of the St. Pete like ping pong club, and so I have a ping pong paddle, and what I did is I drew the paddle with Procreate, and so I got Zazzle, which is a company that prints T-shirts, and if you have like the AI or PSD file, and I upload it because with Procreate you can save a file as PDF or a PSD file, and I created. I wanted to create a shirt design with just Procreate, and I did, and it was pretty cool. Yeah, I traced the paddle to the exact dimensions, and
I threw in some graphics in there. It looked pretty good.
Nice.
Oh. How about Sean? What are your favorite tools so far?
Some favorite tools that I've, yeah, I love the Adobe stuff. So off the podcast, I kind of shouted out Figma, and I've on a couple times. For anyone out there that's doing any UIs, website designs, do that. We just talked about VS Code. So VS Code is such a great coding tool. I'm a new person with it. I've been a Sublime person forever, and for anyone out there that really wants to integrate their flows and really have stuff do automated stuff, VS Code's insane, man.
Sublime's pretty cool, and another software as a service thing I use is Toggle. So Toggle is like is like online time tracking software. So like I used before this, but I've been using Toggle since 2010. You can go see it toggl.com, but you can specify the project that you're working on. And you just hit a button like a time clock.
Yeah.
And then when you hit stop, it'll add the time for you again.
Yeah, I have that on the app here. I have hours, and I click on it, and I can now the timer runs now.
Yeah.
But I'm terrible with managing I need to do this app for that, so I track it, and I'm like the worst. He's so good with the calendar.
Yeah.
That's what I learned from him. I need to be more with my time scheduling and everything.
Oh yeah, the time blocking and the time tracking and
I use Google Calendar. Apple Google Calendar because they integrate them. For time tracking, Toggle is awesome too. I've been there probably since 2013. Oh, so you use as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and I've jumped around to pretty much all of them. I've used pretty much all the ones out there, and I love Toggle because
that's amazing
because it's simple. I just love it. I love how simple it is to edit things, and get reports. And
what sold me on Toggle is that their headquarters is like in some small Eastern European country, and they Estonia, I think, is what where they're located at. Well, they came to the U.S. and I was just it was only a $5 per month client or a customer, and they hit me up and they said, hey, we're coming to Atlanta. It's like we want to meet you, and they came to meet me in person at a Starbucks less than a mile from my house.
Wow.
And I thought that was pretty nice. And then the person working for Toggle at the time gave me a free Toggle t-shirt. They sold me after that.
That's so cool.
It's the little things.
Yeah, it was huge to me.
It's interesting. So I kind of want to dive in that a little bit. Yeah. So we kind of, we also talked a little bit off camera when we met before of you had recently just taken a trip to New York, right? And we were talking a lot about the importance of kind of connecting with your clients face to face, right? Do you want to talk about that experience, I guess, going to meet someone that you've had digital communications with?
What tips too you could implement?
Huge. It's huge. With all the virtual meeting software that's out there today, like Zoom, Google Meet, Skype. I still prefer to meet clients face to face because there's something about in-person meeting that can't be done via a phone or email or a video conference call.
Oh yeah.
So I've met almost every single one of my clients, regardless of where they're at. And I've got clients in Florida, Georgia, Phoenix, New Jersey, New York. And I have 2 in New York, and I'm about to have more because I met these 2 clients in person. So I scheduled a trip to New York just to meet these 2 clients. And
that's so cool.
It was huge. It was huge for me to meet them, and I think it was just as big for them for me to come up there because they ended up referring me to two of their colleagues. And
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's really interesting, right? Because you're probably more likely to recommend someone that you've actually met, right? It's hard to recommend this guy that he's done his job, but he's just a floating head.
Yeah.
Where now that they met you, you're like, dude, this guy's really nice. He's a really nice guy. He's going to handle any of my friends. He's going to be really nice to them. And so it's really funny that once they saw your face, that was all they need. They're like, okay, cool. I can recommend you to my friends. I trust you.
We were talking about this about a week or two ago. You do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to always, I found that years ago where like, when you there's so much that like, you have these pleasantries, right? In email, you're like, thank you. Have a great day. How was the weekend? Okay. Oh, the kids. And you have these kind of, and they're like, okay, but that's it. That's about all it gets to in a Zoom, right? You're not going to talk 20 minutes about something, you got to get going. You got to, so when you actually have dinner with someone, you actually get to talk a little bit.
Oh yeah.
You actually get to talk about your story being in prison. Like that's never going to come out in a client meeting. You're not going to be like, hold on, I want to interrupt you really quickly because this reminded me when I learned web design. Like you're never going to do that. So it's like, it's cool you get those little interactions, right?
Yeah.
It's so cool. But yeah, I still do it to this day. I try to visit. That's why I'm kind of back and forth between Colorado and Florida. And I kind of tell both clients that like, hey, if you really need me here, I'll be here kind of thing. Like a plumber or something else, right? Like if you have an emergency, I'll be here. I'll be boots on the ground. And I think people like really like that idea, and it makes people, especially in the world where we're all kind of remote, I feel people get kind of scared, right? Like, oh, is Tom just going to run away? Is he going to just disappear on me?
There's some website developers and actually just maybe even SEO people that don't even talk on the phone, let alone meet in person.
It's a different. It's a different society nowadays. Even after COVID, the mask thing, and everybody's so distant, and like, oh yeah, we only can do the Zoom thing. So people will be so weird, and they're getting weirder and weirder. It's like, I don't want to interact with anybody when I go shopping. I just want to go into Walmart, buy my stuff, and please don't give me a cashier. I just want to swipe. Those people, I think like they will have big issues like in the future where we are like old school. It's like, oh yeah, handshake, the whole 9 yards, and I want to talk to somebody because like connection is everything now.
I did that for 1 month during COVID. Well, actually, when I first moved down here, I was going to do the Zoom meetings, and I was like, no, screw that. I'm going to meet people face to face. I don't care if there's a pandemic going on or not.
No risk, no fun.
Yeah. I mean, I would just do outdoor meetings is what I did. I was like, hey, do you want to go walk around the park and we'll have the client meeting? And people are usually okay with that. But you're right. Like, during the pandemic, everyone went to Zoom. And I just noticed some clients were okay with it. Like but some clients just couldn't do the Zoom. Like they would almost shut down. Their creativity just went to a zero, where I'd be like, okay, the Zoom's not working, right? Like we do need to meet in person.
Well, you also have to deal with some like a learning curve with technology, because some of my clients aren't like up to speed even with video conferencing software.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was funny. Like when COVID started, it was actually really funny. That was that was like some of my the biggest thing I had to do for clients at the beginning was literally doing that, teaching them. Here's your Google Calendar. Here's how we integrate it into Zoom. And just all those things, because almost every single one of my clients had problems early on with it.
Also on that note, like that time frame was like for me the worst for networking, like how I get my business from like meeting people and then word of mouth. I was like, oh, I know a guy, he did this and that, and I'm like basically meeting people, and I'm like social, and so I was struggling so bad with that. I'm like, I cannot go out there and connect in the regular normal way, and I'm like struggling so hard. How did you deal with that at the time?
There was like I was telling you, there was a month where I was meeting people. It didn't feel right, so I started actually demanding that we meet in person. And
I want to share the code.
Some people didn't want to do it, but if they didn't want to do it, it's okay. Actually, I did have, and they're awesome clients now. When we first met, this was during the pandemic. And they came to my office, and they asked me to they looked uncomfortable because I wasn't wearing a mask. And I was like, would you prefer me to wear a mask? And then he said, so would you please? I was like, okay, I'll put on the mask. But I was like, but just to let you know, I got vaccinated, if that makes you feel any better. And then a couple minutes went by. I was like, you can take off the mask now. I was like, all right, okay.
That's really funny. The comfort level got better.
The comfort level, after that,
nothing changed.
Nothing changed. No, he was really at ease after that with me.
Yeah.
So I guess, so getting to now, I guess. So, I kind of know that you're doing pretty well. It seems like I think every time we've talked, you have a good level of client base. I think you're pretty funny when you talk about it, where you're kind of like, I don't know if I really want more. I kind of like where I'm at. And I think that's a good place to be. So I guess, we talk to a lot of people that aren't quite there. And even ourselves, we need more clients. So we're not really quite where you are yet. How does it feel where you are now? What's kind of the biggest challenge now that you kind of have the set client base? What are you kind of feeling now?
Oh, well, my biggest challenge is probably how can I squeeze out more billable hours, because like lots of times I'm dealing with I don't have a big team. I have a website developer that I use on a part-time basis or even as needed basis. An assistant / Google Ads person and then a graphic designer. But I do all the SEO work myself, and I have to answer the emails. I'm a small entrepreneur. I'm not like I don't have a huge team, but that's my biggest problem is to really get some billable hours in there, because I've definitely got enough work to do, and luckily I don't have problems getting business. We were talking about this before, people, I've had some business acquaintance ask me before, like, "Hey, have you called my wife yet?" And I was like, "No." I was like, and he says, "What do you think? They're going to call you or something?" I was like, "Yeah, actually, that's usually what happens." Man. But,
I love that.
Usually, people ask me for business. I'm lucky where I don't have to go door to door and ask for people. Yeah. Hey, do you want a website? Do you need some SEO? No. Well, that honestly, to in all seriousness, I think I lay the groundwork with some SEO work.
Yeah.
And so the SEO is like your 24-hour salesperson. And so if I before the podcast started, I think I'd asked Fritz and to do a search for web design, and because we're right here, right by my office, Mr. Technique's going to show up at number one, or it does, because maybe I had something to do with that. But even if you type in St. Pete web design, Mr. Technique somewhere in the top 3. But the SEO definitely helped, but also too, I just don't have I don't really sell by directly selling. I just kind of give some advice, and then eventually somebody, I don't know, I think some of it's luck and some of it's work.
I'll say the luck, and I'll say the work, but there's something for you that I do see that is, I think, very obvious for me, is that you put out stuff, right? So you're an ambassador for the local chamber. You're part of of all these different kind of organizations, and on your website too. So for people, you should really check out Mr. Technique, because good blog posts, especially if you're an upcoming web guy or SEO guy or anything, really cool informative stuff. You have a cool library of stuff on there, even links to other tools and stuff. So you're very giving. Even when we met, you were definitely, there was no blocks or anything. You walked right over, shook my head, and you're like, "Oh, that's cool. You do web design, man. That's awesome." You're open and awesome. So I always feel that when you give good into the universe, it's just going to come back.
You do. Yeah, you're right. I do give, and I try to give some advice away. And all my blog posts I write are blog posts that solve people's problems. They're actually not sales blog posts, but they're selling in an indirect way. It's
that's powerful for SEO, because people are Googling problems, and they're just like, how do you solve this problem? Now you're popping up, and now you're the website expert.
For instance, Stripe. Stripe is a payment processor, and for those who didn't know, somebody wanted to know how could they tack on the transaction fees for Stripe, so they could actually get the amount that they asked for. Let's say they want to get paid $100, not $100 minus the transaction fee. So so they wanted to pass on the transaction fees to the customer or client, and so I had to figure out how to do that. And when I did, though, it's a problem that other website developers have. So I wrote a blog post on it. It gets a few thousand visits a month.
Yeah, and what's cool about it, because you've even told me this, that you'll go back to your own website, right, for reference, which I love that, because I run into the same stuff, right, where I'm like, dang it, I solved this, but it was a year ago when I solved this problem, and I'm digging through Evernote, or I'm digging through anything, and I'm just I can't even find what I did. So super smart way to just keep track of stuff.
Yeah, right? you just jog my memory on that too. Yeah, you're right. I write it for a few purposes. One, to inform to inform the reader, and 2, to inform myself. Sometimes I go back through because I use them as notes. So for instance, I may not know how to set up a SSL certificate on my local computer, but I wrote a whole blog post on it. So I was like, oh, well, let me follow this step by step.
This Tom guy's really good at this.
I mean, like, this brings also another topic up where it's like nowadays you don't really have to know a lot, but you have to figure out where you get the information and how to implement it. And I think this is like such a new skill that we technically know everything because we have access to the internet, but how fast can you implement it? That's kind of like what I love about this era. What is your guys' take on that so far?
Internet's helped me out a ton in terms of finding information, because before like Google existed, like if you didn't know the answers to stuff, it was a lot harder. Now you can find the answer on anything. You can, like, YouTube will teach you anything, how to do anything.
Yeah.
Like I learned how to I think disarm like an alarm that went off at 4 a.m. when my wife stepped in the door, and it was a alarm system that we weren't subscribed to, but I had to figure it out
quick.
Yeah,
before you end up back in jail, you know.
Yeah,
just joking.
Back to jail.
But yeah, well, so. You know, we've talked about AI a little bit. We've talked about other tech. What's got your attention? Is there anything that you're kind of like, there's something to this?
About the AI?
Yeah.
You know, I have a Google Bard account, and I used to have a ChatGPT account. I do not anymore. Maybe I'll reopen one in the future. But I think, you know, from what I've read, I get these publications from SEO companies, and they're telling me the uses of what you can use ChatGPT or actually just AI in general for. You can use it to like form like a boilerplate of the content, get you started on it, but like you shouldn't copy it word for word because there's AI sniffers out there. But what you can use it for is you can use it to write newsletters, because Google doesn't index newsletters; they're private, and Google doesn't index like maybe it does index social media posts, but that's not going to hurt your website ranking on.
So SE AI sniffers. I think we should explain that for the viewer.
Oh, so it's like websites that you can plug in. So let's say you can plug in like the text that you generated from AI, and it'll tell you if like it thinks that you used AI on it.
Okay. So the general recommendation is not to use it as much or modify it.
Yeah, you would modify it heavily, like or at least modify it to fit your company. Because if nobody modified, someone else is asking that same question, you end up having the same generic content.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. So that's interesting. So you so what made you, I guess, quit GPT, but you stayed with Bard, I guess? What was that decision?
I got a little, I guess, nervous. Maybe I'll restart the account later on. It'll have to be under a different email address because they won't let me start with the same one now.
Oh.
But
you can always make.
I've heard some people's takes on it, or I had a friend of mine tell me about it, and I guess I should have looked it up, but I didn't, about how ChatGPT is biased and how it can lead you down the wrong path because it's biased, and so I'd closed that account. I was like, I don't want to use it. But then I had another buddy of mine who actually who's a starting developer, and he was telling me about Google Bard. But I started thinking about, you're not going to avoid AI altogether. But and Google already has all their information they want on me anyway, so why not use Google Bard? So I decided to use AI from the source.
Yeah, you might as well, right? If you've been on the Google apps since like the early days, you might as well, right?
I'll try Google Bard. Yeah.
So have you integrated it in your workflow at all? Have you kind of what's it been most useful for you, I guess, so far?
I had a client, and she it's the biggest pain point with SEO clients, that they don't want to generate their own content, or they
they feel intimidated. Like most people can't write. Most people can't write their own content. Most business owners can't write their own content.
Oh yeah, it's scary, right? When you ask like, oh yeah, so what's your mission? How would you break it down? And you just get a blank stare. You're like, oh god.
They're like, well, can you tell me about all the services that you provide? And you hear blank because like, do you know what you're doing?
Yeah, exactly.
We're doing stuff.
Yeah, you know what you're doing, right?
Yeah. But so the biggest pain point is to get content. So that AI actually helps solve that. So I was having a meeting with. I actually went back to Atlanta like last month and had a meeting with a client. And she was asking me. We were talking about AI and content, and I was like, hey, I could, since you don't have time to generate your own content, I could get Google Bard to generate some general content on your field, and then you can tweak it however you fit, how tweak it to your needs, or to fit your company. So she said, okay, give it a shot. She said, don't spend too much time on it. Well, in 15 minutes, I generated 3 versions of a page for her. So and sent it to her.
Yeah,
and now it's up to her to review it.
Yeah, yeah. Same. I've done the exact same thing, and you're 100% right. I mean, I've had websites that and it's funny because it's always the websites that they needed yesterday. They need it really quick. So you go really quick. Like I'm like, all right, well, I got you a whole website, created the entire environment, designed it, prototyped it, developed it in a week and a half. I'm amazing. And then I'm like, so where's the content? And then we wait like 3 months for the content.
Yeah.
And so I've literally had it totally tank projects before, that kind of content bridge that you have to try to jump over. So I've done the same thing of like, I even tell people in the prototype, I don't use lorem ipsum anymore. And that kind of tells to a lot of designers, don't use lorem ipsum. Use ChatGPT. Yeah. Get real content in there. If you're making a cafe website, just get some garbly good cafe content. It'll at least look like a real website. When you show, I can't tell you how many clients I've showed lorem ipsum and they're just like, but there's Latin in there. I don't get that.
You're right. The lorem ipsum confuses people every time. But I mean, to me, it looks like filler copy, but they don't see it that way. They're like, oh, what's that? It's like filler copy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think 100%. And one thing I do want to highlight for you, for anyone listening, is that you're honest about it. You're telling her, I'll use AI or I'll use something.
Yeah.
I think that's
some people don't even tell them that, do they?
Yeah. And I think there's something to that. I think as long as you're transparent about it, I think it's fine. I think it's when people start to say, well, I'm also a professional copywriter, and it's like, I'm like, no, man, stop.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. That's cool to hear. So. Yeah. Any questions? Sorry, I feel like I've been talking a lot.
No, I mean, this is actually for Sean and you. So it's like you guys are old friends. So I'm listening and learning. But on that note, my wife has a website, and she's like, in the beginning, she wrote everything herself, and she did a good job and does the research, makes extra pictures for it with Photoshop and Procreate for graphics. But now she got into that habit of using ChatGPT free too much, so she's getting text from it. And it's like, it doesn't feel good. What are your takes on using AI for content creation on a long-term basis? What are things to watch out for, do's and don'ts, stuff like that, so that anybody who's using it right now is like, oh, I gotta buy this plugin or avoid this, for guidance.
I don't really want to use ChatGPT for personal use, honestly. I would use it to write content for pages, but as far as honestly, maybe I just don't want AI to learn me, I guess, learn who I am, personally. It could be a skepticism on my part, and maybe it's nothing, but
there is something to that, though. I mean, I feel like when I ask a question to ChatGPT, I'm kind of like, I'm like, I think you're learning how I'm learning, and that's kind of scary to me, right? So is GPT sitting there being like, you know what? So web designers like him ask questions like this, so I can undercut him by doing this. It's like you're revealing too much, right?
Because it learns.
Yeah. I had a friend that he told me he was just testing it out, but he actually was trying to use GPT as a therapist for a little bit. He had a whole thing open where he's sharing personal things about his life and seeing what it comes up with. And that just made me feel real weird of there's this old, I forgot, there's a famous author. It says that someone on YouTube is going to shout it out probably, but when you stare into the abyss, the abyss stares back. And I think like there's something to that. When you stare into the darkness, when you stare into the AI is also staring back at you.
Yeah. A human is easier to handle. You know, when you talk to somebody, you ask them questions and whatever, you know what they are capable of doing. AI, you have no idea. It's
new. It's
yeah, and it's incredible, but yeah, it's a scary thing. So I guess in web design, what's cool in web design? I mean, what do you think is like, what catches your eye now when you see like a website that you're kind of drawn to, that you're like, that's pretty cool?
I think you might stump me, Sean.
I know it's kind of a hard question to answer.
Yeah, especially after when we came in and you're like, you guys spiked me again about like web design and hyped me up and stuff, and now I'm like, yeah, the future is like very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, because I mean, even if I was to ask that question to myself, it's hard. It's a hard, I think motion, things like that, I'm very interested to see like VR, and augmented reality.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Does that play a part, right? Do we need it? Should we start to learn? I had a friend the other day, and I can't name the code, but he sent me a whole framework that they've developed now that's all about taking the code you have and implementing it into a 3D graphic surface. So it's like, you would take your JavaScript, HTML, and then it's like taking that code and then actually creating the 3D visual for like an augmented reality type of thing. So, and I started to look into it, and it's funny, man, me going from art school, I start to look into that and I just get a headache immediately. It just like when I go deep into that, but so I think that kind of interests me, right? Do we become environment designers? Do the websites break from like the screen into the world?
Yeah, you know what? Because there is VR is getting bigger. And I could be old school, but I still use I still just browse the internet a lot from a desktop computer.
Yeah.
I guess phone would be number 2.
Yeah.
And tablet's a distant third in there. You said what about websites stick out to me?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, what excites you? Is there anything you've seen recently that you were like, whoa, what the heck? That's awesome.
You know what? Every time I look on freaking Apple's website, they always have some really cool effects as you're scrolling down.
Yeah, the parallax stuff.
Yeah, it's different parallax. It's I don't know how to describe it, but they're just take a look at the Apple site, scroll down, and you'll see like the newest technology on their site.
Yeah, you got things fading. What's really interested me about the kind of the newer websites, because so for a long time the Apple websites, they've always they've had the kind of floating elements as you scroll, or like it'll rotate slightly.
Yeah.
But what's crazy now is they'll have it like the element rotating as a video's playing and stuff on the rotating element and stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute, how did you have like an iframe of a video that's now turning in 3D? I'm like, what? So, but it's like subtle too. So I agree. It's like Apple's like a good like.
It's like cutting edge like website coding.
Yeah, cutting edge website coding, but it's not over the top, right? It's like the subtle effects all over, which is really cool, because I know I run into that, man. When you like get me going, when I learn CSS animations, or when I learned Lottie animations, when I learn these things, I'm dangerous, where I'm like, let's put sparkles all over it, let's blow it up.
You're right. CSS animations are really cool to me. I actually like that a lot.
Yeah, I'll still use it once in a while. Some developers will poo-poo it, but I'm like, no, man, there's some cool stuff there still.
Yeah, for instance, like on my site, MrTechnique.com, I have a phone next to the computer. I mean, I have a phone icon next to my company phone number. On the desktop, it doesn't move, but as you shrink it and you go to a mobile screen size, the phone constantly vibrates.
Oh, so it's like jiggling.
Yeah, it jiggles.
Yeah,
it jiggles via the
Does it do it here too?
Oh no, that'll be the desktop version. So you won't be able to see it there. You'll it would only be on the phone that it kind of does a little jiggle.
Yeah. Oh, since we're being filmed, let's see if I can pull this thing up here.
Yeah.
Let's see.
But I like your website. It's pretty cool. You got like 5-star reviews and everything. The whole 9 yards. Yeah. Google and everything.
Yeah. So I don't know if can that be seen on there.
Yeah, give it to me.
Yeah, let's see. Show it.
So let me actually switch back here. So whoop. Oh yeah, it's jiggling.
You got that jiggle?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Got some phone jiggle.
Yeah, I love it.
So I like animation.
Cute details.
It's the little things, right? It's like the little things that surprise you, right?
Yeah.
One thing I've been saying a lot more is like inspire joy. That's what I always kind of tell clients is like, that's what I tell people that kind of separates me from other people is that, some people just want to create a business website, but like my thing is like, I want to inspire joy. And I think it's those little moments where like, oh, did that just wiggle? Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
It's like those cool moments that I try to go for. So with that being said, so you moved to St. Pete, which is an awesome place. I mean, how do you like being here, doing business here versus like Atlanta?
That's a great question, Sean, because when I was in Atlanta, like almost all new businesses were coming through Google. Like I didn't have, I didn't really have to. No, I didn't have to really try, but we know that before.
Didn't have to try; it just happened.
There's a few people yelling at the screen now. What? I'm trying so hard.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not lying. There were clients that just called me up, and they were trying to convince me to do business with them.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. Just somebody else will do it.
Yeah, but when I moved to St. Pete, so the St. Pete doesn't have. The same it doesn't attract the same amount of business, I guess. There's not as big as of a business city as Atlanta.
Oh yeah.
But it's different though. So now I've gotten Mr. Technique to where it's attracting just about as much business as Atlanta, but it's in a different way. So in St. Pete it's about the relationships that you have. So that's why in the beginning I wasn't getting so much like business in St. Pete because I didn't know anybody. I moved to this town where I moved to a city where I didn't know anybody.
Right.
And so I did things like join the chamber to meet some people, and then my office is in Thrive, and it has a thriving business community.
Oh, nice.
No pun intended, right?
Oh, we do it every episode. We just had one where we just waved. Anyway.
Yeah. But so through these relationships, I've gotten more clients through relationships than Google. Google still provides some leads, but by far it's through personal relationships. That's through business relationships that I've established.
St. Pete's kind of a special place for that. So when I actually met this guy, I was at a design meetup.
I thought it's about like graphic design, whatever. It wasn't.
Was it through meetup.com?
Yeah, it was through meetups. Yeah, and there was a lot. There's not as many these days. That's something I feel like post-pandemic. We've talked about this. There's so much less meetups, but I remember going to that meetup and just how open people were. I mentioned one thing, and they had people introduce themselves, and I made a little joke, and then I kind of was like, yeah, I'm just trying to get into more WordPress design. At the time, I'd only done mostly print design. And I remember one guy across the room was like, we need to talk. And like that guy ended up being like a big partner of mine for like 2 years going forward. And it just blows my mind. I went to one meetup in this town and it helped launch my entire freelance career.
Oh, wow.
And so I totally feel what you're saying here with St. Pete, Florida, in terms of like, there's something here where people are just really open, it seems like,
People care about, they want to do business with people they know.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, the real people aspect. I think
trust.
Yeah, 100%.
It's a city, and it's like, I don't know if you guys been to New York, but the streets are gridded up there, and it's huge. But like the streets are gridded here in New York. I like New York as well. Just smaller though. It's a smaller city, but man, it's a city where you can. It has a small town feel to it. Like I ride my bike around downtown St. Pete and talk to people.
Yeah, we talked about that in the Uber. So basically we were talking in the Uber about like Tampa or St. Pete, and like Tampa is too big city like, and it just doesn't feel right, you know, and St. Pete is like lovely family afternoon walk through the city,
Yeah, I don't want to talk bad about Tampa. It's just not
got clients there.
Actually, surprisingly, I don't actually. But I just don't want to. It's just not my cup of tea in Tampa.
Yeah, I think people, it matches for certain people. I used to live in Denver, and Denver's definitely like an Atlanta or a Tampa-sized city, and it felt too big for me for sure. I love the fact that like when you know everyone kind of in your circle, and like it's so cool when you like walk around, you're like, wait, you know him too? Oh, you know each other? Oh, that's awesome, and it is really cool. And I feel like it's never been negative here. I've always felt like everyone has this kind of positivity because a lot of people moved here from somewhere else, is what's interesting.
Yeah, most people here are transplants, and
I tell you what, though, the people here have city pride, St. Pete pride. Like people really love St. Pete. Like they brag about it.
Oh yeah, 100%. You know, so with that being said, you know, I know you're an ambassador of the chamber and things. How's that experience been? We have a lot of people that watch this podcast that, you know, they're probably wondering, like, you know, what is the good of joining a thing like the chamber or joining
networking events?
Yeah, or any networking group in general. Like, what's the benefits you saw of that?
Oh, the benefits that I see of it is that you get to meet other, you know, if you're an entrepreneur and you don't know anybody, it actually gives you business contacts to people to talk to, maybe some friends to have or to make. So when I first joined the Chamber of Commerce, honestly, to be honest, I joined it for the backlink. I would get because I get to display a link to my Chamber of Commerce page.
That's smart. I like that.
And I did that. And so, but I wanted to go meet people. I joined the chamber in the middle of the pandemic, so they weren't having in-person meetings. So, but as soon as the first in-person meeting happened, I was there.
Nice.
And I made some contacts, but I really didn't start making, I guess, friends at the chamber or really making full use of it until I joined the St. Pete Chamber Ambassador Program. That requires me to go and call up new members that just signed up and have a conversation with them, meet with them at a chamber mixer, and there, to do that you have to show up to like monthly meetings, and I do that. And it's once a month, and I've made some really good contacts, some friends who've been over my house, and
nice,
and had some barbecues with.
Yeah, so there's something really big about that, because I think we've had that. We've gone to like a couple connects as well here in town, not necessarily chamber, like St. Pete Young Professionals and stuff like that we've done, and it's really interesting because it was funny. The first one he went to, I think he was really thrown off. He thought it was almost going to be a networking thing, right? So so he went around kind of like, well, what is it you do? How can I help you? Type of thing. And people were like, no, we're just hanging out, man. And it's kind of that. It's a newer, interesting thing, because I think when people think about these things, it's always about like, well, I need prospects, I need leads, I need money right now. Where no, man, you could just make friends. Like that's how like all of that will come. Like just go to these things and start to get a community around yourself.
I think there's something to be said about if you people can tell when you're desperate.
100%.
Yeah, like, you know, I don't exude that at all. But
yeah, you definitely don't seem desperate at all.
He's like, nah, I don't want it.
it's like the opposite way.
Yeah, he's the opposite of desperate.
We need less work.
Yeah, no, because I remember I used to go to every chamber meeting. I would tell like the other ambassadors that I was like, I'm good. I don't need any business right now. We're good.
You're like, whoa.
And they're like, whoa.
Do you have a card? You're like, yeah, no more.
No more. Yeah.
I think when I met you actually only had one card. I had to take a picture of it. You're like, I only have one card left. Sorry.
Yeah, but eventually, like I end up getting a client in there. But it's not the main purpose why I joined the chamber. Actually, I joined it for the connections, and eventually the business will come. But if it doesn't, I'm okay with that too.
Well, it's about putting out that positivity, right? It'll come back, right? So I guess, we're probably getting up close to time, I'm sure. So to tell people out there, I guess, so they can find you, Mr. Technique, what kind of, for any of our people, like what are kind of the clients that you're looking for? Are you looking for new clients, or you just kind of want people to follow you there? Or?
So I take a client, I take about one client a month. Actually, that's probably the most I'll take is one client per month.
Okay.
Type of clients, I mean, you probably shouldn't be a starting business with no budget. You've got to have
basically 80 for
everybody. I don't want to do. I'm not there to do pro bono stuff.
Good, we love those answers around here.
But clients that actually have an established budget, you know, I mean, if you can spend somewhere around $500,000 a month, I mean even less than that, but just not where you're trying to get by with spending like, I don't know, $25
a year or something. That's not gonna happen.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And I guess and so obviously go there to see your blog posts. Are you posting on LinkedIn? Anywhere else? Is there other places to kind of see?
Yeah, I actually have a question for that. You do video at all for promo stuff or anything like that?
You know, surprisingly, Fritz, I don't do that much video. I have one video, and I actually need to remake it. Maybe I'll have you freaking do it. Fritz,
I got you.
So yeah, you got me, man. So like, and I had a video done on freaking, you know, this will probably make you cringe, just like we cringed when we mentioned Canva or Wix. Like I said, I had a video made on Fiverr. You know, it's like, you know, people who get stuff done on Fiverr, like usually people frown on. I mean, for good reason.
It can be good and bad, because like I had like the intro was like from my other podcast. It's from Fiverr, and it's really good. There's good creatives on there, but it's like you really have to like source multiple creatives and then combine it into one good project. Otherwise, it's like you get just like a slideshow, and this is now my new website introduction video or whatever.
So I need to update that video, like just an intro video of Mr. Technique.
And maybe we'll have more video content here. You know, it'd be cool to do some deep dives with you too. I know here we kind of just touch the surface of stuff, but it'd be cool. It'd be cool to learn more. I know there's so much, you know, out there. People don't understand even Google. They don't understand SEO. They don't understand like how to set up these things.
They don't understand SEO at all, and when they're telling them about SEO, it's just kind of like their eyes glaze over. And
and it's something that I know we've talked about that you have to know. It does, even if you're an illustrator or a painter, you really should understand SEO, at least on a basic level.
Yeah, basic level. Yeah.
Unless like the content is so good that it's like automatically gets shared because it's like the most viral whatever, but it's impossible to create on a consistent basis. Like it's
well, this has been great, man. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was like, Fritz, you dabbled in YouTube like SEO, and it had some good success.
Yeah, the good thing is like it's passive views, and passive views pay if you have affiliate money on there, and you get like ads and stuff, and that's where I'm like, you can leverage like your portfolio to like, I like this. Can I make a review? You know? That's kind of what I'm doing. So it's like, but on the side.
On the side of other side things, like this amazing podcast. Well, awesome. Well, it's been great talking to you, man. We'll get you on probably a few more times, man.
Fantastic.
There's so much more to talk about, but I'm glad you got out of prison, man. I'm really happy for you.
Me too. I'm glad I'm not in jail anymore.
How many years was that actually?
I worked in the jail for about a year and a half or so.
On that note, what are the crazy stories that you have from there? We need to hear. We need them views.
We'll wrap up with a good crazy story.
Oh man, crazy story. Okay, wow. This is gonna blow your mind even more.
No worries.
So long time ago, like I used to be like a part-time professional boxer. So I was fighting on ESPN. And it was a Friday night, so Friday night fights, and I couldn't get the night off. I asked everybody, "Can you give me a night off?" And they said no, and I had to swap with somebody that day, and so that person worked for me when I got to go fight that night. And you know, it's funny, I was nervous for my first fight on ESPN, and then I was fighting against an ex-inmate, not from the same jail, but someone from prison. Well, I learned. I beat the guy, and surprisingly, you know, it was a quick knockout. It's like 37 seconds. And
so dangerous.
So when I went back, I went back to jail. I went back to work. I'm sorry, to work at the jail the next day, and well, you know, they didn't let me have the day off, but they didn't mind televising my fight to all the inmates in the jail.
Oh my god!
So I had to work. A cell block or a cell pod the next morning, and I go in there, and they're giving me like a high five. I mean, they're like giving me an applause,
the slow clap.
They're giving me. I mean, I got a warm welcome, and I was like, "All right, guys,
that's so funny.
Stand up for roll call, man." Like,
you got the prison cred. That's so awesome.
Yeah, so they televised my fight in front of these people, man.
But you're such a nice looking guy. I'm sure you're just like, you looked so nice. They're like, that guy, whoa, oh my God, 30 seconds, that's crazy.
Yeah. That was probably the weirdest story there. Wow, yeah.
That's a good story.
Yeah, I like that one.
That's not bad. I didn't see that coming at all. That's, that's super awesome.
How do you casually box on ESPN?
How? I mean, I'd been, well, that's the whole nother story.
Yeah, we may have to wait for another podcast for that one.
Yeah, we're kind of running out of time.
How we learned how to web code while boxing.
I'd been boxing for years before that, so and it was like the beginning of my professional career at the time.
Love it. Yeah.
It's so cool. I mean, and I just want to say this is like, it's cool when you hear people's stories and all the weird stuff they did, right? Like I was a driving instructor for a while. I was like, we all did weird stuff that we don't do now.
A driving instructor?
Yeah, I was a straight up driving instructor, guy with the clipboard in the seat next to
I can see that.
I was
like, you're teaching people how to drive cars?
Yeah, we taught kids. I taught blind kids how to drive.
What?
How is that possible?
A look and feel. A lot of it's pretty crazy. There's a whole process to it. But we'd have them out on a course with cones and everything. We'd put them in skids. I'd actually put their car in a skid, blind kids, and we'd even have kids with like one arm. We'd teach them how to drive with like a knob. It was crazy.
Blind? You not seeing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not seeing. We had the school of the deaf and the blind. They would bring the kids out, and it was cool because the kids were like jazzed because they never got to drive. So they were, I even taught Porsche race car drivers we would do like skids with them in their Porsche race cars.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting job.
Yeah, yeah. So we've all had these weird backgrounds, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it's really cool. Well, thanks, Tom. Thanks for coming on. You're awesome.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Fritz.
Yeah, no problem.
We're definitely gonna have you on again. You have a lot of stories to tell, so we're gonna get to even more next time.
Yeah. You got some social media to shout out?
Yeah. So. Not personally, like the Mr. Technique Instagram is at instagram.com/mr.technique, and then if you go to Facebook, facebook.com/mr technique.
That's good.
And same thing with Twitter/X.
Yeah. Got a quick hot take on that?
I don't really use Twitter so much now. It's I don't.
Yeah, no one really has a hot take on it. That's the funny part.
Yeah, it's fine.
Everyone's like, whatever. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, thank you again, man. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I'm definitely following. Really cool web design guy. Very humble, as you can see.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll definitely have you on again, man. So thank you.
I appreciate you guys.
Have a good one, guys.